That's a good question. So I went to Yale in the late 70s, early 80s, in the MFA master's program, in studio art, and sculpture actually. That's what I got into. And then when I was there, I did an elective with Vincent, the famous architectural historian Vincent Scully. And he just had this, he had this, I don't know, I think it was Introduction to American Architecture 101, something like that, a huge lecture class. I was just enthralled. I never heard anybody like this, and he was so passionate. So the next year, I did a graduate seminar with him, and then I became a TA in the lecture class, and just became obsessed with his interpretation and his way of reading architectural history. And he could see in a building, he could see in an architect's work, all of culture. And I'd never sort of been able to read architecture that way. I'd always been fascinated by it, but didn't know much about it. And then when I was still at graduate school, I think I published my first piece. It was on this library, this new library. And I just took to it naturally, because creative writing, when you're doing poetry or fiction, I don't know, it's difficult because it's almost like there's nothing to push against. And I found with architecture, it's this solid thing. It's like a city or a building or a street, or a bridge or something. And you could almost visually and verbally, push your structure around this real structure. I don't know if that makes any sense. And give it a kind of narrative that I found very difficult in normal creative writing. And I just kind of was good at it right away. I felt really comfortable writing about other things because it got me away from myself, and it was sort of. But you could also do very personal interpretive, riffs on the man or the woman in the city, and how the city molds and shapes that person's psyche, and how landscape, when you're walking through wilderness or landscape, how it affects you. And I really enjoyed that. And I feel I've plumbed that pretty deeply. I mean, I've published, at least 25 to 28 books on the environment. And art too, but mainly physical space.